Native Americans have lived for thousands of years in the Mojave Valley along the shores of the Colorado River. Here, where the three states of California, Arizona, and Nevada now meet, these Native Americans were sustained by this mighty river. The Mojave settled along these shores of the Colorado about 700 AD. And from this brave breed of farmers and warriors descended the Mojave, or what we often refer to today as the Mojave. The Mojave Valley was the heart of the Mojave Nation, and seldom did these Native Americans experience invasions of their homeland until Spain, then Mexico, and then the United States wanted passage through Mojave territory.
Avi abolbo, avi halbo ya akor namakhav konavs nikanav kem mutavil nyavs.
Our people came from Spirit Mountain.
The Mojave and several other tribes share a common religious heritage with the legend of their creation at Spirit Mountain, a sacred mountain in the Mojave Valley.
Our people came from Spirit Mountain. You know, they what we call first house is a pillar that stood in the canyon before the river took over what they call bullhead, I guess now. And there's a hard stone that's just like a pillar, stood way up. And we call that the first house because we felt that was the center of the shed that Motavil, God lived under. That's our belief, you know.
According to Mojave legend, God took a willow stick and drove it into the ground, and out came the waters of the Colorado River, along with fish and ducks.
The Biqua man lived in that area and created everybody, all of nationalities, and sent them their different directions, you know, saying, you as English, you're going to live over here, and I'm going to give you this, and you take care of that, and you're Chinese over here, Japanese over here, Hopis over here, Navajos over here. But the Mojave, I'm going to select you as my chosen people, and I'm going to put you along a river, and I'm going to call you Pipa Hamakav, means Pipa means people, Aha means water, Makav means along beside, which he does. We live along the river. And you are going to be my people, my chosen people.
Many relics that may have told us more about Mojave life have not been passed down through generations. The Mojave believe in cremation.
One of the traits of the Mojaves, they cremate their dead. There are very few Mojaves that have been buried. They would throw in all of their personal belongings. They still cremate their dead the same as they did thousands of years ago.
By 1600, the Ahamakav, or Mojave tribe, spread throughout the Mojave Valley.
Mojave Indians were agricultural. They planted in the overflow of the Colorado, kind of like the ancient Egyptians planted in the overflow of the Nile. They are surrounded, except up and down the Colorado River, by Indians that were not agricultural. They were hunters and gatherers. Maybe a very limited agriculture, some of the Indians of the desert. But the Mojaves, by and large, were agricultural. Well, once you get to be agricultural in a civilization, you get extra time on your hand. The Mojaves used some of that time to travel. And they traveled all over the Southwest. And they had trails that went places. and they were a link in a trade chain that ran all over the American West. And if you go look at the contact literature, you'll see here and there where early explorers bump into Mojaves in unexpected places. It's because they traveled. Well, one of the things that was held in very high regard by Native Americans was seashells. So it's natural that the Mojaves, given that they were travelers, would travel to the sea, and became a link in the movement of seashells into the interior. But the Mojaves were an adventuresome people, so they were in it for the adventure. The commercial side of it was a plus, but I don't think that was the basic motivation. I think they could grow in an average year. Of course, if the Colorado didn't overflow, they were in trouble. But in an average year, I think they could grow adequate crops that they had a lot of extra time on their hands, and off they would go.
The Mojave Trail traversed the Mojave Desert by way of the few water holes and the Mojave River. This trail was used by the Mojave to visit and trade with other Native American tribes on the Pacific coast. The trail included direction signs. There is water. Just ahead, in the direction you are looking. And a well-beaten path from the sign to the water would make it even easier to find. One of the wonders of the Mojave was their ability to travel the Mojave Trail from the Colorado River through the Mojave Desert, barefoot, with little water.
The enemy trouble survived. There was water. They knew where the water was. There wasn't much water then, because the seeps and springs across the desert would get choked up, and they'd even close them up. But they knew where they were. And so they knew how to dig and get water. They would carry parched corn with them, and probably other foodstuffs. It didn't take them as long to get across the desert as it took the people that came behind them. Easy 50 miles a day. And all you had to do was get from the Colorado River to, say, Soda Springs, or at least Afton Canyon. And that's just 100 miles. Now, in Afton Canyon, you pick up that finger of water, the Mohave River, that comes down from the desert side of San Bernardino Mountains, and you're home free.
The Mojave were a peaceful people until they were threatened or offended. Then they could be fierce and merciless. They were traditional enemies to the Cocopah and the Pima and the Maricopa, and would send out raiding parties against these tribes, sometimes in conjunction with the Yuma or Apache. It has been said that the Mojave had a habit of aggressive warfare against their traditional enemies. The cause for fighting was seldom protection of their homes. It appears the Mojave were not generally attacked in their homeland. Even enemy attacks of retaliation were aimed at the Mojave's allies, but not generally at the Mojave villages. There were warriors among the men of the tribe. Often these warriors felt that it was their destiny to lead the tribe into battle, and that they had been given special power. Often they felt these special powers had come from deity through dreams. The daily activities of the Mojave centered around farming, religious belief and ritual, and the river. They were not hunters as their neighbors. They did fish. But the basis of their diets were crops they grew and gathered along the shore of the Colorado. The Colorado River of today is not the same river that it was. It's been tamed by the dams and flood controls that have been built. It was larger and wilder. It would overflow its banks each year, even change paths as the sediment would create sandbars that would divert the flow of this mighty river. The shoreline vegetation has also changed.
The river was a true riparian, riverine ecosystem at that time. Dense stands of cottonwoods and willows along the shoreline. Off of the shoreline, you would run into stands and bosques. A bosque is a clump or a grove of mesquite trees, and then a little farther up, you start to run into those purely desert trees, the palo verdes and such like that. But dense groves of cottonwoods and willows along the river here.
The Mojave style of life remained unchanged for hundreds of years, but the arrival of Europeans created a wave that eventually washed much of the culture and traditions from the shores of this Mojave homeland.